for two. Kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two. Sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo!
What is going on, guys, and welcome to episode 318 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. Of course, we are live every Wednesday night on the Going for Two Live podcast network on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, and syndicated on all major podcast networks. If you're watching us on Twitter, unfortunately, we cannot see your comments, so go find us on YouTube. It is youtube.com/@Going for Two Live, so you can comment and interact with the show. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Ryan Steerfoss. What's up, Ryan?
Oh, not much, man. Just trying to figure out how I feel about the Ravens' recent moves and just life as a football fan in general right now.
Yeah, that was a very interesting signing. I did not see that one coming, that's for sure.
I either like it or I hate it or I love it or I despise it. I don't know. I have no idea how I feel. It all depends.
Ravens fans right now are pretty much day to day.
I'm used to pure consistency in my life, and I'm in shambles right now, and I hate it.
All right. Joining us tonight from DynastyLeagueFootball.com, Mr. Ryan McDowell. He's also the host of the DLF podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at RyanMC23. What's up, Ryan?
What's going on, guys? Glad to be back on here with you all.
Yes, sir. I think this is like the third or fourth year in a row we've had you on right before the NFL draft. So, yeah, thanks for coming on once again. So for those that don't know who you are, Ryan, kind of give them a quick rundown of what you do over at DLF.
Sure. Do a little bit of everything, mostly written content. Also co-host the DLF Dynasty podcast. But yeah, you can find all my work there, collecting monthly ADP for the past 10 years. I do that as well. Yeah, do it all for DLF as much as I can.
Good stuff. All right. Today's show, as always, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check out their industry-leading best ball leagues with huge tournaments, private leagues, and pick 'em to every major sport. Sign up using our promo code GF2 and get a deposit match up to $100. Simple as that. Sign up, use promo code GF2, and start drafting your best ball teams. We got a great show tonight, guys. So we're going to be doing a deep dive into second-year receivers that have not broken out yet, and kind of look at their new season coming up here and see how they're going to fare in with their new teams. I mean, with their teams currently. And then we're going to do a combined mock draft with the 2022 class and the 23 class as well, to kind of see how they stack up against this year's rookies. But before, as always, we're going to start with our nonsense draft.
Attention, everyone. Let's mock draft.
All right, so tonight we are drafting our favorite / best junk food of all time. It's a pretty simple one here. We've done some complicated ones lately, but this one's pretty straightforward. I had no problem at all figuring out what I wanted to put on my sheet for tonight. And Ryan, you got the 101 here, so kick us off.
Yeah, I think I might have spent more time on this than the football part, but yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. Didn't have any problem coming up with some options here. I guess it's really just a question of what qualifies. You know, how broad are we going with this? I'm going to play it safe. I don't know if this is my 101, but I know it's probably not going to last. I'm going to go the candy direction with the 101. I'm going Reese's.
Nice. Yeah,
It's a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. That is definitely on my list. All right, I'm up at the 102. And again, it's all about how you classify junk food. And I'm going to take a broad approach to this as well. And just I'm going to take pizza. Take pizza. It would be probably my 101. I think pizza is the go-to for everything. I can eat any kind of pizza from anywhere, pretty much. I mean, Little Caesars, Domino's, whatever. I've always loved pizza, so pizza is my 102 here.
Yeah,
Ryan.
I'm already feeling bad about my pick now.
Yeah.
I just honestly didn't even think of pizza. Stuck with the, I'm giving away my strategy here, but mostly stuck with the sweets. Yeah, pizza. What a steal at the 102.
Yes, definitely. Ryan, what you got for the 103 here?
I'm getting oddly specific tonight, so I'm gonna start with normal. I'm going Sour Patch Kids.
Ah,
I love me that sour sweet. Love Sour Patch Kids. I have no self-control when they're around.
Yeah, my daughter got Sour Patch jelly beans for Easter, and they are so good. I've been crushing them. Whenever she's not looking, I'm like sneaking a few of her jelly beans.
Dude, that's how you teach your children about taxes.
Yeah, you got to take a little bit of it, right?
Yeah.
Nice pick, man. Sour Patch Kids was on my list for sure. Like I said, I'm going to stick with the sweets here. I'm going brownies at the fourth pick overall.
Great pick. Yeah, I definitely have brownies on my list as well, and I thought that might slip down to me at the last pick there, but great pick. All right, so I'm up here at the 105, and I've got a bunch of things on my list here. I don't know which way I want to go. Let's go with this is probably my weakness right here. My wife bought these for my daughter once, and she didn't like them, and I'm supposed to be on a diet, and I crushed the entire box of them, and I probably shouldn't have, but I love Swiss cake rolls. Have y'all ever had Swiss cake rolls?
Yeah. I prefer the zebra cakes, but the Swiss cakes are good too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I'm gonna go here with the 104 with the Swiss cake roll. All right, Ryan, what you got for the 106?
I'm taking hers jalapeno poppers. They're like cheesy puffs, but they're jalapeno flavored, like jalapeno cheddar.
Nice. I can't say I've ever had those before, but
I will, before I was trying to diet a little bit, I would get a whole bag and just put it at my desk at work and destroy the whole thing in the gas station.
Nice.
I mean, all gas station food qualifies, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Anything you buy at a gas station is going to be junk food for sure. All right, Ryan, you got the last pick here, or your last pick at the 107.
Yeah. Man, so many options left, right? I'm gonna go with my favorite type of chip. Just going simple here. Doritos, classic Doritos.
Classic.
Yep. Got that on my list as well. That's a great pick. All right, so for my final pick here, I'm gonna go with the one that kind of became famous from a certain movie, that it never goes bad no matter how long it's been sitting around.
From Zombieland.
I'm going with the Twinkie. Got to go with the Twinkie. Go classic there. So yeah, the 108 for me is the Twinkie. All right, Ryan, or Foss closes out here.
I'm bringing it home with the ELF fudge cookies.
Yeah,
nice. That's a good one.
Now the ones just can't get no self-control with.
Yeah, that's a great pick for sure. Yep. Good stuff. All right, that wraps up the nonsense draft. We're going to jump right into the second-year receivers that have not broken out yet. I wrote down a couple of names here. We try to get to as many as we possibly can. I wrote them in kind of in an order of how you would probably be drafting them right about now. But the first one at the top there, Jameson Williams. And Ryan McDowell, I'm going to go to you first on this Jameson Williams one. We didn't see a whole lot of him last year. We kind of expected we wouldn't see a whole lot of him. And I feel like people are starting to sort of double count that we didn't see him, so therefore he's now taking sort of a hit in his value. But what are your thoughts on Williams going into this season coming up here?
Man, honestly, I forgot just how bad he was when he did finally get on the field. And of course, that was, we're not going to pretend he was back to full strength. I certainly hope that's not full strength. Because the guy played 6 games, had 9 targets, and caught 1 ball. Yeah. Now, the one pass he caught was a 41-yard touchdown, also had a 40-yard rush. A couple games later, had a 60-something yard touchdown called back. So, when he touched the ball, he made huge plays. But gosh, he was really disappointing. I know there were, from a dynasty standpoint, you wait and wait for him to get on the field recovering from that injury. He finally does the last several weeks of the season, and then you just get almost nothing from him. Yep. And I would have liked to have seen more from Jameson Williams. You think about that Lions offense. it seems like they're pretty confident in him. They let DJ Chark walk. They didn't really bring in anyone of significance so far. We'll see what they do in the NFL draft. But again, you look at his dynasty value. He's actually gained value since September. You go back to September, our preseason ADP. Williams was the wide receiver 38, 70 overall, and currently 53 overall, wide receiver 27. So not only gained value, gained pretty significant value. And honestly, I kind of think he's kind of riding the coattails of some of these other sophomore wide receivers. Of course, we see guys like Chris Olave and
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson. Yeah, thank you. We see those guys as possible first-round picks in dynasty leagues, and we're really the rest are all getting a boost based on that. So I like Jameson Williams. Hope to see him at full strength this coming season, certainly. But I'm a little scared off by that price tag right now.
Yeah, that's surprising to me. I hadn't actually looked at the value change, going back to September. I just assumed in my head, just by talking to people, that his value took a hit just because, they didn't see much of him last year, and what we did see wasn't great. So that's interesting. What about you, Foss? What are your thoughts on Williamson? I know you liked Jameson Williams coming out last year.
Oh, it hasn't changed. I still love him. We're coming off he's coming off the torn ACL, and yes, obviously struggled, like you said, coming back, but didn't know the offense. You have, when you miss the entire preseason as a rookie, you have no chemistry with the quarterback. You're missing on plays. They have other deep threat receivers, and they were just trying to work him and get him on the field. I think more of it was just to get him running with the team than actually trying to efficiently use him, because it's a lot to implement really quickly, get that chemistry. I think an entire offseason makes a difference. Looking at the roster, like you mentioned, they left DJ Chark, whose role he kind of fits in as that deep threat who had 53 targets. He does a little bit more than Chark on the inside and with the ball in his hands. So with as high power that offense is, the defense still a little bit of a struggle where they're probably going to be in shootouts. There's still an opportunity for him to get highly targeted. And I don't think it'll be consistent on week-to-week basis, but I think he can be a nice boom-bust player. Like that third receiver on weeks you want to play and kind of go for. I think he has that this year. And I think there's upside on top of that.
Yeah, I think I'm with you both. I think very similarly. I think, I drafted him in a lot of my leagues. I was very high on him. Actually had him as my receiver 3 behind Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And, looking at my teams now, like Ryan said, waiting for him to come back. He finally comes back and you don't get really much of anything out of him. But I guess in my head, I kind of didn't expect to get much out of him to begin with. So the fact that we got anything at all just to get him on the field was kind of exciting. And like you mentioned, Shark's no longer there. That offense does look pretty explosive. I think that he steps right into that number 2 role next to Amon-Ra in the slot. So I think Williams has a lot of upside for sure. And I really hope that we see it this year. Jared Goff, as much as we kind of poo-poo him in the dynasty industry, he supported receivers before. He's with the Rams. He had 3 at one time that were all perennial, top 12 receivers with Kupp and Brandon Cooks for a little while and Robert Woods. So I think when you got Amon-Ra there, Jameson Williams, I think it's definitely a possibility that he can be a dynasty asset for sure. This next guy, he kind of started really slow. He had a couple really big games and then sort of phased out towards the end. And I believe he ended up getting hurt. I tried to look at his numbers, but I thought he got hurt towards the end of the season. But Treylon Burks, and I'll go to you first this time, Floss. Give me your thoughts on Treylon Burks this year.
I mean, how much of it's going to depend on who's the quarterback this year? Like, this team's kind of in limbo with who's going to be throwing the ball. So that's a little bit of a concern. I think he'll lead the team in targets. I just don't know how much. I like the ceiling. I think we might still be going old school with that third-year breakout form. I'm not as confident this year as I may be in the future once things are more settled. But the talent's there. There's one guy we're going to talk about below him. I'd probably put above him. But, I mean, he's right in that conversation for me. He has all the skills you want. He has the draft capital. It's just – I think it might take a little patience because – this team literally just has run by Derrick Henry and whatever else is just a crapshoot.
And the quarterback situation is definitely something to monitor for sure. Like, he actually surprised me a little bit last year because I was really down on Treylon Burks coming into last year. And those couple of big games that he had, I mean, they were pretty big games. And, you saw a lot of stuff from him in those games. Kind of got me excited a little bit. But you're right. That situation at quarterback is scary for sure. Even beyond just, this year, just looking at, the next couple of years, are they going to be replacing Malik Willis after one season? It's, it's kind of hard to say.
They talked about moving on from him already. I mean, and if it's Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, God, if it's Will Levis, it's going to be bad. But if it's Anthony Richardson, there's going to be a learning curve.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to be heavily run like we saw with Fields early on.
Yeah.
To protect them. It's just, I'm scared about the situation more than the talent.
Right. What about you, McDowell?
Yeah, he's a tough one for sure. Of the guys we're going to talk about today, Burks is actually the most valuable from a dynasty standpoint. 42 is his current ADP, wide receiver 22. That represents a big value gain from the preseason as well. He did have those couple of big games, as you mentioned. He was a wide receiver one time, wide receiver 2 one time. So a couple games inside the top 24. But also those injuries, missed some time, ended up playing 11 total games on the year and had solid numbers, but just so many question marks. Can the guy stay healthy? He had a rough preseason, I guess we could call it, where he couldn't climb that depth chart, and there were some strange reports coming out of Tennessee, and then just mix in the things that Ryan was talking about as far as, will Tannehill even be there? If he's not there, which of these rookie quarterbacks are we relying on? We assume it would either be Levis or Richardson. Being a Kentucky guy, I'm actually a little more confident in Levis than maybe Foss is, but still.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Hey, you're not alone. But still, there would be obvious question marks. I mean, Levis is falling in the draft. That's the reason we're talking about him being an option for Tennessee, who I think has the 11 pick, I believe. So, yeah, it's just a tough spot, and ultimately, I think his value drops. And if you do believe in Burks long term, if you like him still, I would not be buying now. I think you're going to have a much better buying window once the season begins, and they probably have some rough patches there.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's his value right now. You're saying he's the most, the worth the most out of these receivers we're talking about tonight is, a little bit of expensive for my taste. But as we get closer to the season, or even to the start of the season, if we see some bumps in the road, and you like Burks, I would go out and buy him at that point, because things hopefully change down the road there. So, agreed. All right, this next guy, sort of going into last year, he was sort of an afterthought in a lot of our rookie drafts until he got drafted to this team that, of course, is a high-powered offense, and it raised his value up into the first round in most rookie drafts. Mr. Sky Moore, of course, for the Chiefs, didn't do a whole lot last year. Kind of showed out a little bit more in the Super Bowl than he did anything else. Ryan, give me your thoughts on Sky Moore this year and what can happen with him this year.
Yeah, he's the only player that we're going to talk about that has lost dynasty value, and he's lost significant value. As you said, the hype was building really from the NFL draft all the way up until the season began. I mean, I remember doing underdog drafts. We're talking obviously redraft leagues where he's being drafted as a starter essentially on fantasy teams. So his ADP in September was 80 overall. He was the wide receiver 42. Now he's all the way down to 137. And wide receiver 61. That's the kind of player I want to take a chance on, right? Like I like that value a lot more than what we saw several months ago. The things that we liked about him, he still has going for him. Obviously, that Chiefs offense and Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs are another team who not only have they not really made a move at wide receiver, they let Juju go, and I mean. The Chiefs claim they're content with Kadarius Toney as their wide receiver one. I mean, he's a fun player to watch when he's on the field. I can't imagine him being healthy a full season. I hope he is, but I'm not counting on it. So I just see Sky Moore, even if they draft someone, on day 2 or something, or even with that last pick of the first round, I expect Sky Moore to get more work. He's got to get more work than what he did as a rookie. And again, at that price tag, 137 overall, Why not take a shot if you're in a startup draft right now?
Yep, absolutely. That's a good point. He's great value right now. I always think it's funny with the Chiefs. It's like their players always seem to get valued immediately. But
Yeah,
I don't know, outside of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, has there been anybody else that's been fantasy relevant, for a long period of time? There really hasn't. Just, no one I can think of.
No, not really. I mean, obviously, Clyde is one of the biggest busts we've seen, even though he did have, like a productive year and a half there or something like that. He certainly hasn't lived up to expectations. If you took him first overall, 101 over, guys like Jonathan Taylor, et cetera, that still stings. But actually thinking about it kind of big picture, I looked back and Andy Reid, even going back to his Philadelphia days, he has very rarely had a wide receiver 2 that produced. Of course, he's had explosive wide receiver 1s, Tyreek Hill, Deshaun Jackson was in that group. Jeremy Maclin had some good years, but very rarely has an Andy Reid coach team had a strong second option at wide receiver. For whatever reason, it just doesn't happen. So unless you think Sky Moore becomes the wide receiver 1, then maybe that's a mark against him.
Yeah, that's a good call. Going back to Andy Reid's history there, because for sure, I think a lot of times his best second receiver ends up being his running backs. He likes those running backs a lot. So yeah, that's a good call. The next one on the list is a favorite of mine. I've actually wrote this guy up for Player Profile and did a video on him that should be a part of their draft kit coming up. I just liked watching him play this year, and some of the catches he made were just ridiculous. Boss, I want to get your thoughts on Sky Moore real quick, and then we'll get to George Pickens.
Oh, I was getting ready for Pickens. I think a lot of with Sky Moore is I don't know how he fits. Like at his value, that wide receiver 61 is insane. Like you mentioned that, and I had to look again just because I almost didn't believe it. It's so low. When you said, I'm like, is that a typo? He's a value. He's a value at that area, and he's worth the dart throw there. I'm not very confident. I mean, in all reality, Travis Kelce's the wide receiver 1 there.
Yeah,
Get 152 targets. He's the wide receiver 1. Tony's still there. They have MVS, who we haven't really talked about, who got enough targets last year. And Mahomes, outside of Kelce, has just proved that he's phenomenal at spreading the ball around. And they also feel like a team who could draft a possession type wide receiver, because Juju's role is nothing like that they'd use Tony for. Another sure-handed guy, I think, fits that offense, and I could see like a Cedric Tillman or something like that being a nice fit. And if that happens, they take another wide receiver, it kind of just deads Tony. I'm sorry, Sky Moore.
Right.
Chad also mentioned that Mecole Hardman gone as well. We didn't even mention that. So Juju gone, Hardman gone. That leaves Tony, Sky Moore, MVS. That feels like almost nothing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's some upside there with the young guys, but it's tough to go into
Richie James.
That's true. I like the Richie James signing. And yeah, he could pay off. You talk about a guy gaining value because of the Chiefs. There you go.
There you go, for sure. All right, Foz, kick off George Pickens here. Give me your thoughts on him.
Dude, Pickens is good. I want him more than any receiver on here other than Jameson Williams. And it's close to Jameson Williams. I think he has a rapport with Pickett. They're going to kind of let the leash off slowly for Pickett, let them throw a little bit more. And those two have chemistry. He's a big body guy. We've seen the struggles with Deontay Johnson just being here in Pittsburgh. You hear the talk about Deontay Johnson being a little bit more replaceable. George Pickens has that potential to move being their wide receiver 1. Like he might have the highest ceiling out of these guys right now.
Yeah, like I said, I wrote him up in Player Profiler, and one thing I looked at was pre-Chase Claypool and post-Chase Claypool, because I think he's ranked right around receiver 38, 39 right now, last I looked at it. But if you look at his post-Chase Claypool trade, he was receiver 26 in PPR. So that right there gets me a value that I like already from where he's going. So like I mentioned, I love Pickens. I love watching him play. We know the Steelers, with the recent history, love throwing the football. They didn't do it much last year because they had a rookie quarterback, but You look at the year before that, they were, I think, second in total pass attempts. So I think they want to throw the ball eventually, and I think they want to get Pickett to be groomed to that role. And if you look at his early season last year, Pickett did throw a ton of passes early on. They kept throwing interceptions, so they went back to be more conservative. So I think they might, try to get to that, throwing mode once again, and that would only help Pickett's role for sure. What about you, McDowell? What are your thoughts on Pickens?
The first thing I have to say is I'm surprised he's on this list, honestly. Our topic, our focus tonight is second-year wide receivers that haven't broken out, and we've got George Pickens on here, but there's no Drake London. So George Pickens has 2 wide receiver 1 games, 4 wide receiver 2 games. He finishes as the wide receiver 36 on the season. Drake London, 2 wide receiver 1 games, matches, only 2 wide receiver 2 games. He did end up outscoring Pickens on the season, but only by 2 fantasy points. And he saw a ton more targets than Pickens. He caught 20 more passes than Pickens. He had more yardage than Pickens, and still somehow Pickens made up the gap and nearly outscored him as a rookie. So I like Pickens quite a bit. I like Drake London as well. I was surprised to see one and not the other, but Pickens certainly an impressive rookie season. I know there's some that are down on him. He played well enough for Pittsburgh to feel good shipping off Chase Claypool, and maybe when you get offered the 2.01 in the draft, maybe that's an easy call, regardless of who's regardless of who's on the roster. But Pickens played well from day one for that team, and as you said, this is a team that is always able to find that day 2 or early day 3 wide receiver. I think they'll probably do it again this year, or at least try to. Will the Steelers? But I love Pickens. Actually, looking at his value, I've quoted ADP for everybody else, so I'll do it here. Almost unchanged. In September, he was the 60th overall player, so we're talking about the last pick in the 5th round. Today, in our latest ADP at DLF, he's the 60th overall player, last pick in the 5th round. He did move from wide receiver 32 to wide receiver 31, so still, a slight value gain, but essentially the exact same value he entered the season with.
Now, let me ask you this, Ryan. What's the gap between George Pickens and Drake London? Because I feel like Drake London is being talked about a lot more than Pickens is, and I have a feeling it's probably higher.
Yeah, it's huge. Drake London is wide receiver 11 in our ADP, 18 overall. So you can spend a mid-second on Drake London, which I wouldn't hate, honestly. I mean, there's questions there, but I think I get chasing the talent, the upside. He's still only 21 years old. London mid-second versus late 5th rounder for Pickens.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, let's see what time. Make sure we get enough time here to get to everything else. We'll hit a couple more of these guys here. And one guy I definitely wanted to get to because I was excited about him, and I know, Ryan, you were as well. And I'll go to you first, Foss. Alex Pierce as the quote unquote number 2 there. We think it's going to be a rookie quarterback there with the Colts. What are your thoughts on Pierce?
I think it's going to be really hard with a rookie quarterback that year 1 to really break out with Michael Pittman there in that run game. Whoever they're going to take at quarterback, they're going to protect him. Like, you absolutely have to, and you're not letting them throw around. They didn't throw the ball around enough last year to really make it worthwhile. I think you're chasing touchdowns fantasy-wise. If Gardner Minshew is starting, it may help him a little bit short-term, which is gross to say.
If Minshew starts, because he's kind of a gunslinger, does that change your perspective on him this year?
Maybe. Like I said, this team doesn't want to pass the ball. They proved it last year. They want to play good defense, run the ball.
We got a new coaching staff now, though, right? We're going to have we got a new coaching staff. We're going to have a new quarterback. When you got Jonathan Taylor, you're still going to run the ball as much as you can, though. So,
yeah, I'm weary. I love Alec Pierce. Like, he was one of my favorite sleeper rookies, and I'm just a little nervous for him.
Yeah, I would say Alec Pierce is just fine, right? Just fine. Yeah. I mean, when you look at that Colts roster, he feels more like a wide receiver 3 in an NFL offense. Personally, I think Michael Pittman is more suited to be the second option, a wide receiver 2. I really feel like they just need that alpha, that guy that they can throw the ball to 12 times a game if they get the chance and really be their dominant receiver. I don't think that's Pittman. It's certainly not Alec Pierce, but I actually got the chance to speak with one of the Colts beat writers at the Combine just a few weeks ago. And he essentially said the same thing. I asked him what they thought of Pierce, and, he said they were happy with his production as a rookie, but they definitely felt like he hit that rookie wall late in the season. We saw some early solid games, and it just kind of tailed off. But really, honestly, the entire Colts offense kind of tailed off as the season went on. So I think they view him as a solid contributor, but he's, from a fantasy standpoint, he's got a fairly low ceiling. 117 overall is his current ADP, which is a fine price to pay.
Right.
That's fine.
Good stuff.
It's a tough road.
It is. Yeah, a lot of things are stacked against him. Quarterback situation, a running team. We think with Jonathan Taylor at least. Like Ryan mentioned, they needed an alpha receiver, and they go out and they draft an alpha receiver, and Pittman comes to 2, pushing Alec Pierce to the number 3. And if he is the number 3 in that offense, is that offense powerful enough to support 3 receivers? I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
Let's do one more here, and this guy's kind of been forgotten about. We expect this team to sort of make a jump. Hopefully the quarterback play gets better this year. We expect with Deshaun Watson. But I'll go to you first, McDowell. David Bell. He's been kind of forgotten about. He didn't do anything at all last year, really. But we do expect this offense to be a little bit better this year. They got some changes there in the offensive side of the ball. So what are your thoughts on Bell?
I guess I was surprised, first of all, that he got so much playing time as a rookie. Didn't expect him to essentially be their third option or their third wide receiver. But with that offense, with Amari Cooper there soaking up targets and Nick Chubb to lead the running game, even the wide receiver 3 spot was not much to speak of. So I kind of feel like it's similar to what we just said with Pierce. He just feels like he has a low ceiling. He's fine. He's worth the roster spot. I call those guys roster cloggers. Like they're too good to drop, but they're not good enough that you're ever really going to start or get much trade value for.
Yep. That's a good point. Floss, anything different on David Bell?
I might drop him at this point. They got Elijah Moore now too. So he's essentially best case scenario wide receiver 4 behind Cooper, DPJ, and Moore. And I don't want the 4th wide receiver on Cleveland on my team. Well, sorry, Jamie. I know you're in the chat, and that makes you sad.
Well, and Njoku is obviously ahead of him for targets as well. Maybe even Harrison Bryant's ahead of him in targets. I actually like Anthony Swartz there. I think probably better than David Bell, just because Swartz brings something different. That deep threat. We'll see if he can ever, actually catch a ball. He's got the speed. He doesn't have the hands, so that's probably why we haven't seen much of him.
Yeah,
a slower, big-bodied receiver on a team with good tight end just doesn't do it for me.
Doesn't do it. Yeah,
you got DPJ. You got DPJ for that already.
Yep,
exactly.
All right. So attention, Dynasty managers. You want to see something fun and unique for your league? For as low as $8.50 a person in a 12-man league, we do 1 hour podcast dedicated to your league. We break down every team in the league. We give you trade advice. We'll rank them from worst to first. Visit goingfor2.com/PLP for details to book your podcast. We do Dynasty. We do Redraft, Superflex. We do Vampire Leagues. We're actually doing an Empire League next Friday. So go there, check it out. Goingfor2.com/PLP. We got a great team of guys that come on and do the podcast with me. So it's a lot of fun. So definitely check it out. It's a good thing to do in the middle of the summer too, when your league's sort of dead and you want to get some excitement in there. Do the podcast, have them come into the chat roll while we're doing the live broadcast and kind of talk some trash. So again, the link is goingfor2.com/PLP. All right, let's do our mock.
Attention, everyone. Let's mock draft.
All right, and for the sake of this draft, we're going to do a 1 QB league, only because I didn't think there'd be any of the 2022 class that would make it into the first round here. So we'll just stick with the 1 quarterback league. We're going to combine the 22 class and the 23 class with what we know now. So we're not basing it on what those prospects last year. We're basing it on, what Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson did this year versus what we think these rookies can do, going forward from here and where we think they rank at. So Ryan, you got the 101 here, and I have a feeling this is probably an easy choice here. But go ahead and give me your pick here at the 101.
Yeah, maybe not as easy as you might think, but I am going to take Bijan Robinson here at the 101. Currently going 4th overall in single quarterback leagues already. Obviously, the highest we've seen a running back go pre-draft, a rookie running back go pre-draft in the 10 years I've been collecting ADP.
Even higher than Saquon?
Yeah, so Saquon and Zeke both cracked the first round as rookies, but not until they had actually played, not until the season began.
Gotcha.
Really?
That's an interesting stat right there. I like it. All right, Foss, you got the 102 here.
I'm taking Garrett Wilson. I think we saw a glimpse of him being a true wide receiver 1, and he proved he's quarterback proof with just the hodgepodge of guys thrown to him last year. And the chances Aaron Rodgers with him is huge. But I think he's a bona fide star no matter who the quarterback is.
Yeah, that's who I would have picked at the 102 as well. And I would have considered him at the 101 as well. I think Bijan would have edged out, but I do think Garrett Wilson was in the conversation. All right, the 103, it's a pretty easy pick for me, is Chris Olave. I love Chris Olave. I loved him last year. He was my receiver 2 next to Garrett Wilson. He's got Derek Carr now, who we know likes to pick one target and throw it to him. I mean, last year it was Devontae Adams. The year before that, it was Darren Waller. For a while there, he had Amari Cooper was his guy. So hopefully Chris Olave becomes that guy, gets a ton of targets from Derek Carr, and sort of raises his status there, as I think he can be in that conversation for receiver 1 this year. So give me Chris Olave at the 103. McDowell, back to you.
All right. I can't believe you guys are going to make me start running back. I never do that, but I'm going to do it here. I'll go with Breece Hall, the Jets running back. Obviously had that tough injury as a rookie, but we saw enough to know that he's the real deal. I think right now Bijan Robinson is the Dynasty RB1, and I think Breece Hall is the Dynasty RB2, and I got them both here, so I'm good with that.
Good stuff. Not worried at all about his injury.
No, not really. I think it seems like it was of the clean variety. We got scared off by that J.K. Dobbins injury that was unfortunately more serious than just the straight ACL. It sounds like that is what Javonte Williams is dealing with as well. That's why we're seeing his value drop. But everything I've said suggests that Breece Hall will be ready for week 1.
Good stuff. Foss, you got the 105.
I'm going to take the real running back too. I love Breece, but I'm taking Ken Walker here. He started 11 games and had 255 touches. Pete Carroll running back is just going to get usage. And that offense was clicking last year. He's just shy of double-digit touchdowns. Yeah, I think, I almost took him over Olave, but I just didn't want to take a running back there. I think he's going to get it's going to be a sweet 3-year run.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to last much longer than that because of the way they're going to use him, but it's going to be real sweet when they do.
Yeah, he was amazing last year for sure. All right, so I'm up at the 106 here, and I think I'm going to take the first receiver from this class. I'm going to go with JSN here. Now, my original film review of JSN was not very favorable, but Ryan Foss has since convinced me to go back and look at him again. I'm a little bit more excited about him now than I was earlier in the season. And I heard reports that, some teams only have him as the first round talent. I don't know if y'all have heard that same news, but I've heard that JSN's the only one that's supposedly a first round talent. I don't know how true that is or not. But I'll take JSN here, and even not knowing his landing spot at the 106.
Yeah, I like that pick. You sniped me there for sure. I was taking JSN. I'll stick with the wide receiver position at 7 overall. After I spent a few minutes questioning him, I'm going to take Drake London here at the 7 spot. Still love the upside, love the age. Get this guy a quarterback and maybe a coach who wants to throw the ball too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we really need. And throw to Pitts while you're at it as well.
Yeah.
All right, Foss, you got the 108 here. Now it's getting interesting.
Oh man, I'm going with this guy. He scares me because I think landing spot matters for him. But I absolutely love the skill set. He graded film wise, higher than all of my running backs last year. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. The sub 200 pounds scares me a little bit, but he's so electric. He is just so versatile in the passing game. I think he can be a 60 plus target guy. Which means he doesn't need much more than 150 carries to be fantasy relevant. And that kind of production and that skill set lasts. They land an offense that actually uses the running back that way.
I like it. That's definitely who I was hoping would fall to me with this next pick. Because you left me with the decision here. Either I go with, my guy from this class that I love so much, or I go with my guy from last year's class that I love so much. And I think I'm going to go with the guy that from last year's class that we talked about a little bit already, having that huge upside with Jameson Williams. We already know the offense is pretty potent. That receiving core is a little bit thinner, so he will be used a lot more. I think just by sheer, being on the field in that offense is going to pay off for him. I think once he sort of gets his feet under him with Jared Goff, I think he'll be just fine. So give me Jameson Williams here at the 109. And back to you, McDowell.
I'm going to go with a receiver from last year's class as well. I'm just not sure which one. Man, there's questions about all of these guys. I guess that's why they're still around at this point. I'm going to go with Christian Watson. We saw that upside, especially later in the season. I think he's clearly going to be their top target in that offense, and we assume we're looking at a quarterback change. Just need him to stay healthy, really.
Yeah, that's a good call. He's definitely on my list as well, and I'm like you. I honestly didn't think that much highly of him until this last year when he broke out, like in the middle of the season last year. Yeah. Like, whoa, where did this guy come from? And then he was huge after that. All right, Foss, you're up at the 111. Your last pick here.
I thought 2 more. I'm going to the guy we already talked about a little bit. I wanted to take somebody else just to take him, but I'm going to take George Pickens. Like we said before, I think he has such an opportunity to become his team's wide receiver 1. And I think his ceiling is as high as any guy. So I'm going to take Pickens here.
Yep, that's who I would have taken at the 111 as well if I had your pick. All right, so I'm going to close it out here, and I will. The guy that I wanted to take with my last pick is still on the board, and I'm going to go with my guy from this year's class, Mr. Zay Flowers. I actually have him, I think, as my receiver 2 currently, actually over Jordan Addison and over Quentin Johnston. He's the one that popped out at me on film when I was watching film with all his receivers. He seems to have that dog in him. He's just he runs angry. All his routes are angry. I just feel like he's going to be an absolute great player in the NFL. So I'll take Zay Flowers and bypass the guys that are probably ranked a little bit higher with Addison and Johnston and take Zay Flowers. All right. That wraps up our first round mock draft, and we're going to get into our forgotten fantasy player now.
Get ready for GoingFor2.com's Forgotten Fantasy Player of the Week.
All right, Ryan. So we changed our segment this year. In years past, you just kind of gave us your guy and you talked about him, but we've done it for so long that we tried to switch up this year. So now you're going to try to get us to guess who your fantasy player is by giving us some hints here. So go ahead and kick off your first hint.
All right. Let's see, man. This is a random one. If you guys get this, I'll be very surprised.
Oh man, boy, I've been hard lately.
Let's see how much information should I give you here?
This was just work through it. There's no specific way. Everyone's done.
Yeah,
make them realistic. We've had one person give terrible clues. They're like they won't even tell us the position or the play anything. But
okay, I'll throw out a couple pieces of information here. This is a quarterback from the early 2000s. We'll start there.
Quarterback early 2000s. Okay.
Tim Couch.
I thought he had to have good fantasy season.
Yeah,
I wanted this
Yeah,
guy.
Didn't
You were
he
going
get
to
a
Have
Kentucky?
at least
Get a
one
Kentucky?
season.
He was in Kentucky, wasn't he?
Yeah, Foss was going the Kentucky connection. I like
That was the only reason I
That's-
picked it. Quarterback from 2000s.
You know, I appreciate the strategy, but this guy that I went with, I have no connection to him.
Okay.
I was not necessarily a fan of his. I don't even know if I had him on any fantasy teams. I don't know what made me think of this guy. It was the first name I thought of when I was prepping for the show. So I just went with it. I actually had to look up some of the stats and numbers on him because I didn't remember how long he was around, how well he did necessarily, but just random early 2000s quarterback.
So he's so forgotten that even the person giving us the forgotten player has forgotten about him.
It is true. I'll narrow it down for you here a little bit. NFC South.
NFC South. Let's see. Jake Delhomme.
Oh, that's a good guess. That's not it, but that's a good guess. You're in the neighborhood, I would say. This player had 4 straight years as a top 8 fantasy quarterback and 4 straight years as a 3,000-yard passer.
Oh. Was Kerry Collins there in the 2000s? Or was he pre?
He was the Giants. He said NFC South.
No, but didn't he play for Carolina
He was
for a while?
Yeah, he was
Oh, he
Panthers
did.
as
You're
well.
right.
Yeah. I think the Panthers drafted him. Yeah, it's not Kerry Collins though.
Not Kerry Collins. Who else?
There's somebody on the tip of my tongue. I feel like he's for Tampa.
All right, let me give you one more. This player preceded a future Hall of Famer.
So before Drew Brees, Aaron Brooks.
Aaron Brooks. You got it.
Gerson got it in the chat.
Oh,
Like,
nice.
Oh, he did.
Nice.
Yeah, he
he
did.
got that in the chat like 3 minutes ago. He killed it. Good job, Gerson.
Good God.
Nice call.
I
didn't
hate
even
that
see him.
Gerson got it, but good.
I
Yeah,
didn't
he
see him
said
have it.
that. He said that before you said preceded Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got that quick.
The only
Yeah,
reason why I even guessed Aaron Brooks is
Because you
because
saw Gerson.
well, no, because I went to the school district with Aaron Brooks, Michael Vick. They were all in the same class, same year when I went to Newport News. They all played around that same area. I actually played basketball against Allen Iverson in that whole area. So that's first pick that popped in my head was Aaron Brooks when you mentioned that he's before a future Hall of Famer.
Nice. I did see Jamie's question in the chat from earlier. It was asking about Trent Richardson as a first-round pick in Dynasty startups. I believe he was. I know he was in the couple that I remember doing. That was 2012, I think. We just at DLF we don't have ADP going back that far. So yeah, since 2013, I think is where our data starts. But yes, Richardson was a first rounder as well. At least it based on my memory, he was.
Yeah. Wow. That was a huge bust. I mean, that's like one of the greatest busts of all time right there.
He teased us with that first year.
He did.
And then the trade was, I mean, I remember where I was when I heard about the trade to the Colts because it was so shocking. And, you thought it was a steal for the Colts and it ends up being such a terrible move.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. That wraps the podcast up. We'll go to you first, Ryan. Give us your Twitter handle one more time. And if you want to plug anything you got going on at DLF.
Sure. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. And I would say just check out all the work we have going on at DLF. Of course, we're knee deep in rookie coverage, draft coverage, and have a great plan for some content coming for the NFL draft.
Yeah, if you haven't checked out those podcasts either, I will say that I don't listen to a ton of Dynasty podcasts, but one of them that is on my list to listen to every week is McDowell's podcast, the DLF podcast. It's a great podcast to listen to, guys. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out.
Appreciate that.
Boss, what you got going on?
Find me Twitter, Fox534. Find me here every Wednesday night. We have our mock draft coming soon. Was that 2 weekends?
2 weekends. Yep, 2 Sundays.
2 weekends from now, and our draft coverage. And then find me over at the Rookie Big Board with the Dynasty Big Board podcast.
Yep, good stuff. Yeah, I was going to plug that as well. Our 8th annual NFL first round mock draft. We got some great guests coming on this year. I think it's the 23rd. I think it's the last Sunday of the month before the draft. And then, yeah, we'll be live for all 3 days of the NFL draft for the entire thing. Me and Ryan won't be live the whole time, but our team will pretty much cover it all. Yeah, we've done it. We've done the one day in the past, the whole 4 hours or 5 hours. That's too much. So we're spreading the love between all the Going for Two hosts to sort of cover the entire thing. So if you haven't, you check it out. We'll give you instant reactions to all the draft picks throughout the day. All right, for Ryan, I'm Jeff. We will see y'all next week.